intelligence matters. And in the context of leadership, we often think about that intelligence in terms of emotional intelligence or interpersonal intelligence, perhaps. Today, though, we're talking about spiritual intelligence. Now, we're not talking about religious belief or fervor or the opposite of those things, but we're talking about behaviors that transcend those things and set us apart from those leaders who can inspire themselves and others. Inspire ourselves and others. Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable Leadership Podcast, where we are helping leaders grow personally and professionally to lead more effectively and make a bigger difference for their teams, organizations, and the world. If you are listening to this podcast, you could be joining us in the future for live episodes on your favorite social channel. You can do that and get access to when we're doing those live streams, and therefore interact with us and even get this valuable information sooner by joining our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. Just go to remarkablepodcast.com/Facebook or remarkablepodcast.com/LinkedIn. Today's episode is brought to you by our Remarkable Masterclasses, picked from 13 important life and leadership skills to help you become more effective, productive, and confident while overcoming some of a leader's toughest challenges. Learn more and sign up at remarkablemasterclass.com. And at this juncture, I will bring in our guest. You can now see him. His name is Dr. Yosi Amram. Let me introduce him to you. He is a distinguished psychologist, an executive coach catering to CEOs, entrepreneurs, and other influential leaders, and a pioneering researcher in the field of spiritual intelligence. He holds both an MBA from Harvard and a PhD from Sophia University in clinical transpersonal psychology. Prior to psychology and executive coaching, during a 13-year period, he founded and served as CEO for two highly successful tech companies that he led through successful IPOs, Valicert and Individual Inc. Beyond executive coaching, he serves as a psychologist, working with individuals, couples, and groups. He is the author of the book Spiritually Intelligent Leadership: How to Inspire by Being Inspired, which offers a compelling roadmap that equips us with the means to connect with the true source of our power and presence within ourselves. Yosi, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm excited and psyched to be here. Yeah. Honored.
So now I can quit reading something and I can look at you, and so we can dive in. And I'm so glad that you're here. When I got your book and took a look, I said, "Yeah, this is an important topic." And so I was excited that you said yes to join us. And so here's where I want to start. I mean, I read a bit of a bio. There's a lot more to any of us than a short bio. Really, though, tell us a little bit about your journey, specifically as it relates to how you end up doing this work and how you end up sort of pioneering this idea of spiritual intelligence.
Okay. Well, hopefully I won't take the whole time to cover that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay. So you'll keep me honest if I'm going on and on, right? But yeah, I was born and raised in Israel, and like all good Israeli men, I was drafted into the military. And despite being shy and introverted and so on, I found myself excelling in leadership. And somehow I got all these awards and had the fastest promotion track record in the history of my regiment. Luckily, it was a peaceful time and I didn't have to engage in combat and the way our crazy world right now is. So it was a peaceful time, but still, the military is a command and control model where you're trained, and that's effective and powerful and needed when you're in battle. You don't have time to building consensus and so on. So it's effective in the military, but fundamentally it chafed at my soul. There's something in me that didn't really like that. And so I resolved and got interested. Can you build organizations and make effective teams and groups function in a way that supports the individual, that raises our spirit and in more humane way? So that became sort of my lifelong pursuit. And that led me to the desire to become an entrepreneur and build some companies and see what kind of cultures and environments and leadership paradigms I could do. So I studied engineering. I went to MIT. I went to Harvard to get business. But ultimately, that led me to start these two companies you mentioned. The first one was called Individual Inc. And Individual was a concept that was the first company to do personal newspapers. You would get on your fax machines, Kevin Morning News.
Okay,
And
some people don't. Some people are going to have to Google fax machine. Just say it.
yeah, no, that's great. This is in the late 80s, early 90s, but you would have your personal newspaper, news page on your fax machine, and you would tell our software which articles were relevant or not. It would learn, and it's using machine learning already. You know, we weren't calling it exactly then that. But anyway, the point was individuals stood for the individualization and personalization of the content, but it also was an organizational philosophy that supported the growth of each individual in a team context. So I was very passionate about it. The company grew and went public and so on. And I was healthy and I made millions of dollars. But somehow, somewhere inside of me, something wasn't fulfilled. And I had worked 60, 80 hours a week. I was burning myself out. And even though I attained all the success I dreamed of, something inside didn't quite feel satisfied. And I entered what's called a state of dark night of the soul and a spiritual emergency that woke me up to our interconnectedness and shifted my perception from being an independent, separate individual to being part of this interconnected wholeness. And that led me, it was a crisis. I got pushed out of the company because I was really in this expansive state and I had all these visions of the future, all of which came true, but I wasn't grounded. That spiritual emergency turned actually into a manic episode. And so my board was kind of freaked out and put me on a leave of absence and so on. So that changed the direction of my life, but it woke me up to the reality of our interconnectedness and got me interested in what these spiritual states were. So ultimately, then I made enough money. I became an angel investor. I was coaching other entrepreneurs and CEOs, and I could give them the best advice, but unless they did the inner work, they couldn't really accept it because their egos were in the way and so on. So that led me to decide to become a clinical psychologist so I can work with people at a deeper level. And having been involved in leadership, like you mentioned, I knew a lot about emotional intelligence and all the work that's been done with Daniel Goleman, and prior to him, some academicians that developed the concept that showed that emotional intelligence contributes to leadership and well-being in life.
Right.
And I was interested in spirituality and how to inspire. And then I heard the term spiritual intelligence. I was like, wow, that would be a beautiful parallel to emotional intelligence. But what is spiritual intelligence? Great, you put it in the question.
I did. I put it up there. So
that got me onto this journey of what is it. So I had to do all the academic research to define it and find a way to measure it. Because if you want to show that it contributes to leadership effectiveness, you have to find a way to define and measure it and operationalize it. So that was my research that now has received over 1,000 academic citations defining what spiritual intelligence is and how to measure it. Was the first academically validated measure. You might
start there.
Yeah.
You told me I could stop you, so I'm going to do that. So let's start there. In the intro, I said we're going to talk about spiritual intelligence, and it's not about religious belief necessarily. So what is it, so that everyone's grounded as we move forward and talk about the dimensions of it here in just a second?
Awesome. Thank you for that question and pausing me. So spiritual intelligence is very analogous to emotional intelligence, but it's different. What is emotional intelligence? It's the ability to draw on emotional resources and information to help regulate and manage our own and others' emotions. That's kind of broadly the definition. Mm-hmm. So by analogy, what is spiritual intelligence? The ability to draw on spiritual resources and embody qualities that have been hailed by all the world's wisdom traditions and use that to enhance our functioning and well-being in daily life. So what are these qualities? These are qualities like purpose, and service and gratitude and joy and beauty and integrity and higher self and intuition, forgiveness. These are qualities that throughout the ages have been looked at as virtues that lead to better life. And so, exactly as you said, spiritual intelligence is not belief in God or higher power, or any belief. It's not an experience. People talk about an awakening experience that can lead to an enlightenment. It's not a momentary experience. It's the embodiment of these qualities. And so, regardless of your religious and spiritual orientation, and my clients have ranged the full range from people that have been devout practitioners of a particular religion to spiritual but not religious, as many of us like to define ourselves, or atheists. But whether you're an atheist or a devout religious person, you know that practicing gratitude is a positive quality. Practicing compassion is a good quality. Having a sense of purpose is a good quality. Integrity is a good quality. Having intuition, tuning into guidance, higher self through your intuition is a high. So you could be an atheist and have high qualities of spiritual intelligence on these dimensions. You can bring joy and beauty to your life. You can express appreciation, all of which ties right back to leadership. Now, I want to say one more thing. Okay, I'll pause there. You want to say something?
No, because I was going to head right where I think you're going to go. So we talked about spiritual intelligence, but how does that tie to leadership? I believe that's exactly where you're about ready.
Okay, awesome. You were reading my mind. So I'll tell a
You
little
told me to
story.
be present. I'm trying to be present. Yosi.
You are present and you are curious. I love it. You asked me what will make this a meaningful, valuable interaction. I said, be present, be curious. So you're doing it. So I'm having a ton of fun. I don't know if you can notice that. I'm enjoying myself. I'm enlivened by our interaction, which is a joy. So anyway, I'll tell a bit of a story. When one of my first business school classes in 1982, believe it or not, was this case study at Harvard about managers and leaders. Are they the same or different? What's the difference between management and leadership? Well, this was a case written by this legendary professor, Abraham Zalesnik, and his point was managers make decisions, they control resources, and they manage things. Leaders inspire. That's the difference between a manager and a leader. So leaders in their essence inspire. So you think about what is the root of the word inspire. It's spirit. What is spirit? Spirit is the breath of life, the life animating force. So how do leaders inspire? Basically, they breathe life into and cohesion into their organization by mobilizing meaning, by having a sense of vision of where we're going, what are the values. So all of that enlivens the organizations and the team around them and motivates. And that's the life force of the team, the organization, its purpose, its goal, its cohesion. So spiritual intelligence is tightly related to that, because all these qualities of spiritual intelligence I talked about, like purpose and service and gratitude and integrity and vision, those are the dimensions of spiritual intelligence that directly relate to what leadership is about. So I hope I'm beginning
Yeah,
to.
so that's exactly right. So the title of this podcast, or of this live stream, if you tuned in there,
Uh-huh.
was how to inspire by being inspired. So hopefully now everybody, you see the connection between that promise and what we're talking about so far. So the big idea of your work and of the book we've just talked about. Now the framework or the dimensions of
Mhm.
this, there are 7 of them in the book. And what I'd like to do is just have you.
Actually, before we dive there, can I
Yeah,
make a couple other points? I'm sorry
sure.
to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I want to highlight, because it was implicit in what you were saying, but I want to just kind of explicate it because I think it's crucial. So first, how to inspire by being inspired. So what's the premise here? My clients come to me and people want to be inspiring leaders. And I say, well, would you rather be inspiring or would you rather be inspired? And when you realize, it's like most people, we want to be inspiring, but when we focus on being inspiring, it's like we're putting the cart before the horse. We're giving away our power. Other people decide whether we're inspiring or not. It's not within our power. So
100%.
we have to be inspired. And when we're inspired, when we're lit up by a vision and a sense of purpose, that energy then draws other to us. So we cannot inspire others until and when we are inspired. So first thing is we got to get inspired, and so just
No,
that's
I think that's right. Because at the end of the day, no, we, as you said, we don't inspire anyone. They choose based on how they interact with us, what they see in us, what they experience with us, right?
yeah.
As you said. So, you knew where I was headed, which was to talk about the 7 dimensions that you
Right.
highlight in
And
the book.
then
And so,
I'm going to go right there, but I'll just say one more thing, which is that there's abundant research that started with my work that showed that leaders that have higher spiritual intelligence lead teams with greater morale, higher morale, greater commitment, lower intention to quit, and lower turnover. Since then, other research has shown that leaders that have higher spiritual intelligence, even when controlling for emotional intelligence, produce better financial results for their organization. So now there's an ever growing body of research that shows that spiritual intelligence contributes to quality of life, satisfaction of life, even marital and relationship success and well being, group productivity, individual productivity. So there's a growing body of research and science that shows the benefit of this. Okay, those were the 2 points I wanted to make
all right.
sure we cover. Now we can look at the 7 dimensions that you're.
Yeah. So what I'd really like you to do, and we didn't have a chance to talk about this ahead of time, is I just want you to basically list them, give us a couple sentences about each, because there's no way that we can do all of them justice in our time. And so I'm already going to say that everyone, if you've been enjoying this at all, which I don't know how you wouldn't, you're still listening or watching, so you ought to get a copy of Spiritually Intelligent Leadership. I hope you'll do that. So I'm just going to ask you to give us sort of a sentence or two on each. And then I've got a couple I want to dive into, and I've got some specific questions I want to ask across a few of them. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All
Sure.
right. So the 7 dimensions, you start talking, I'll put them in the lower third.
Okay, awesome. So the first one is meaning, mobilizing meaning. And so that leaders create the meaning. Why are we here? What's our purpose as an organization? What are we trying to serve? And how do we turn difficulties into opportunities? Because every organization faces crisis, and we can find meaning in our difficulty that motivates us and energizes us. So mobilizing meaning is the first dimension. The second one is around grace, interacting with grace. And so that would be bringing a sense of trust in the future. No, you can't lead anybody if you don't have faith and trust and optimism that what we're doing is going to be successful. You have to express appreciation and gratitude, a sense of joy. If we bring fun and joy to our activities, there's more energy, there's more creativity. And we find and uncover the beauty and the creativity in our work. So all these qualities support sort of what I'm calling interacting with grace. The other dimensions are inner directed. Yeah. So as leaders, we got to follow our own inner compass. And that's how we lead. We got to be rooted in ourselves, in our faith in ourselves, in our confidence in ourselves. We're not politicians trying to appeal to what others. That's not leadership. That's followship. So leaders have to be rooted, grounded, and have faith and confidence, follow their own inner wisdom and North Star. So that's inner directed. The next dimension is community. Yeah, great. So it's the yin and the yang. So you have to be inner directed, but you also want to cultivate a sense of community and that we're in this together. So you won't move away from, the animosity or the competition that exists between marketing and sales, or sales and engineering, which gets polarized in organizations. So you want to synthesize these diverse points of view enabled the healthy tension between the people that want to build the best product and most reliable product engineering, and those that are want to get to market quickly and capture the market window. So we're in this together. This community, we care about each other, and that's the fabric that holds us together, in our relatedness. And these days, there's a loneliness epidemic. And for people, work is their primary community. We work 40, however many hours. We have more human interactions at work than anywhere else, and more single adult households than ever were. So giving people a sense of belonging is super important for their motivation, health, and well-being, and hence productivity. So we're in this together, and that sense of community is super important. Next is presence. So, the greatest thing is, like, if I'm interacting with you right now, I'm trying to lead you, or I'm trying to sell you on something or whatever. If I'm not present, I'm looking out, I'm looking at my phone, I'm thinking about, oh, my meeting, how did I do in the last meeting? What am I going to do tomorrow?
So wait a minute. You're saying that multitasking isn't one of the behaviors of being a spiritually intelligent leader? Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly what I'm telling you is that not only is it not productive, but it also increases our stress, and we don't do well. And we've all been in relationships where our partner, we're sitting at the dinner table, you watch people at a restaurant, and they're not there. And it's like, why am I here if you're not paying attention to me and I'm not interacting with you? So we have to be present, and we have to be mindful of ourselves, track ourselves, how are we feeling, what's happening to us, track the other person, but also be clear of our intention. What is our intention in the moment? Because that is sort of keeps us on track. So we have to hold a lot. What is my experience? What is this other person? What is my agenda? What is my intention? And all of that is playing into the moment, so I could be most effective. And this is my life. I mean, my life is happening moment by moment. And there's a Las Vegas casino sign. It says you have to be present to win. So life passes us by and we're somewhere else, and our life is gone. We're not living it if we're not present. So this is a personal thing, but as a leader, you're not going to influence someone if they don't feel you care about them and you're not present with them. You're doing their review, you're good in giving feedback, you're doing your one-on-ones. You have to be present. Otherwise, you're disrespecting people. They don't care. You don't care, they don't care back.
There are two more.
Yeah, two more. So truth. Yeah. Truth is like, we have to be motivated by truth, and as opposed to our ego. So when I'm motivated by ego, I want to be right. I want my ideas to be right. When we're motivated by truth, we're open. We want to get the best ideas forward. And so if the market is telling us that the product's not working, we're not going to be, oh, I don't care what our customers say. It's what I say. This is the best. Or, so we want to be open to, and that creates an environment where people want to speak their thing, and the best ideas get synthesized and come together. And then there's this intelligence that happens at the team level. And we have to put our ego aside. And all the research shows that humble leaders, good listening leaders, are the most effective leaders these days. So truth is what we're after, not our ego's grandiosity.
The last one
is
and because I'm older now, this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, wisdom. So wisdom, we have to tap into wisdom. So what is wisdom? Is listening to our intuition. We do all the calculations and the decision analysis, and we run the spreadsheets and the models and the Gantt charts and the KPIs and the OKRs and whatever. But at the end of the day, critical decisions, we have to listen to our gut, and we have to trust our gut as leaders, and we have to connect to our higher self that can give us guidance, and we connect to our future self. Oftentimes, one of the easiest access points is like, when we're facing a problem is like thinking, okay, 10, 15 years from now that I've been successful and achieved everything I dreamed of, and I look back at the situation, what advice would that future self give me? That enables me to tap into wisdom that's available right here, right now. So the wisdom is the ability to tune into intuition, to have our higher self, to find time for rejuvenation and practices like meditation or exercise, and all of those qualities, that because our productivity is not tied to just how many hours we work. It's what's the quality and the energy and the vibration and the frequency that we're bringing. So we have to invest in ourselves. So that those are all the things that support our being able to be at the top of our game, where we have access to all these resources like our intuition, our future self, our higher self. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah. Yosi, there's so many questions I could ask, so many things I thought about as I was reading the book.
Uh-huh.
And yet, as I said, we have a limited amount of time. So I've got a couple things that I think,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about um, what listeners might be thinking. And so one of them is, you talk about being interdirected, and you talked passionately, as you did about all of them, about being interdirected, and yet many people, many wise people would say, listen, leaders must have an outward mindset. They must be focused on others and not on themselves. And I know that you agree with that, but help people see that tension or that dichotomy in a helpful and healthy way.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. So interdirected is the ability to listen to your higher wisdom, but when you're tuned into truth, and that's why you have these yin and yang qualities. You're inner directed, but you're also focused on on egolessness and humility, as I mentioned, where you're motivated by truth. So all of these things go together, and you are driven by your calling, by your purpose, by service. So meaning comes from purpose and service. So it's not about your ego, it's about your purpose, your service, but you are following your inner guidance and North Star in service of something that's greater than you. So I hope that and that explains that you're open and you're listening to customers, you're listening to your employees, listening to your stakeholders, and you're taking a holistic perspective on it, and you're integrating and synthesizing all of it. And sometimes you have to make a call or a decision, and that's where you can listen to your higher guidance. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm guessing that some people who are listening and saw the title,
Uh-huh.
how to inspire by being inspired, expected that a word would have been used before now. We're 25 minutes in, and I don't believe we've said this word.
Uh-huh.
And so tell me the connection between everything we've said
Uh-huh.
and this phrase, that, or this word that people might be thinking about, attitude. Like, how is all of the stuff, all of the dimensions of spiritual intelligence connected to the idea of attitude?
Well, I think it's implicit in everything that we're talking about. It's the attitude of passion, it's the attitude of service, it's the attitude of purpose, it's the attitude of vision of a better future that we're working towards, that inspires us and everything else. So it's an attitude of engagement and care and passionate care. So it's not an attitude of indifference. I'm cool, I don't care, and it's like engagement, it's presence, it's care, it's devotion. There's a
So,
devotion to our purpose, devotion to our calling to serve. It's devotion to the truth. Those are a- deep attitudes.
okay. So one of the things you said earlier, which I agree 100%. In fact, I've said it many, many times, is that we are experiencing significant issues, an epidemic, if you will, of loneliness. And
Uh-huh.
so, my question to you is, in all the work that you're doing here and all the stuff that you've outlined for us, some of those who are listening or watching are leading teams at a distance. Some or all of their folks are at a distance from them, some or all of the time. Um,
Uh-huh.
are there any? Obviously, everything we've talked about can connect to wherever people are physically located.
Uh-huh.
But how does give us a couple of examples of how what we've talked about specifically applies if you're leading a team like me that doesn't see their team every day.
Uh-huh. Well, I think it makes all these things we talked about of connection, interconnectedness, community, caring about each other, that much more important. So, I know companies that are doing this, they do check-in times where people support each other, what's happening in their private lives and so on. Right now, you and I are at a distance, the first time we're meeting live, but I don't know about you. I feel connected to you. I mean, you're tracking to me through our body language. I feel like there's eye contact through the camera. You're nodding right now. You're smiling. Your smile makes me smile. So we're constantly uh, influencing each other. There are these things called mirror neurons, and amazingly, that still works across our Zoom or
Yeah.
across our video.
Right.
So I think, if we get to some agreement around why we're here, what's our purpose, what's our values, that weaves the fabric of our connection and community, even we're across the world. And if we once in a while, once a year, we can gather in person, do an offsite, whatever, that's all the more extra.
That is exactly our team once a year. So um, I want to shift gears before we
Yeah,
finish.
please.
A couple of other things before we finish. And here's one. What do you do? Like it's very clear from the last 30 minutes that you are passionate about and care about your work. But
Uh-huh.
beyond your work, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I go dancing. I love to dance, move my body to music. It's creative expression. It's energizing. It's joyful. I dance with other people, whatever. I also love nature. I walk this morning at 6:30 before the sun rise. I was down at the beach near my house walking, watching the birds, watching the sunrise, doing my exercises of qigong, getting my heart rate up. It's just beautiful, connecting to nature. The beauty inspires me. I love to cook, and I dance while I cook. I put on music, and I'm dancing while I'm cooking, and so
Just don't burn yourself. Like, don't have something like fly off the spoon and hurt yourself while you're doing that. Um,
thank you.
the only thing you knew I was going to ask you was this,
Uh-huh.
and that is, so tell us something you'll see that you're reading or that you've read recently. Just share something with us if you would.
Okay. Well, one book I'm reading right now is kind of just for fun. It's called Shakti Leadership, and it's about sort of the feminine side or the yin side of leadership. Normally, we think of leadership as those that get in front. We have the vision, and we see the future, and follow me, and that's kind of a yang quality, and it's powerful and crucial. But there's the other side of leadership, which is leading from behind, where you drop behind your team and you facilitate and support them to find their way. And so, you might call that Shakti leadership, as just the feminine energy in Hinduism. So that's one book I was reading because I'm working on an essay about the yin and yang of leadership, which I touch on in the book, but I want to
Yep.
bring it together. The other book I'm reading is called Giving, and it's written by one of the prominent Jewish mystic Kabbalist, and it's the very premise is that our greatest well-being, our greatest pleasure and reward comes when we are not so preoccupied by our what we get, but by the desire to serve and give. And the Hindu mystic Rabindranath Tagore says that beautifully in this poem. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I woke and saw that life was service. I served and behold, life was joy. So we're in a sleep, we're seeking joy. And then when we wake up, sort of, so this interconnectedness that we have, then we realize that the greatest joy comes from being of service and removing our own egoic needs from the center of our life. We're going through a Copernican revolution. Prior to Copernicus, we thought that the Earth was at the center of the world, the universe.
Right.
And if you look at the sky, you see during the day the sun is moving across, right? And you think that the Earth is in the center and the sun moves around, but then we discovered no, we're not at the center. The sun is at the center. We're going around, and the Earth is an offshoot of the sun, which sustains it and gives it energy and life. Now, we live our lives, most of us, including me, think that our ego, our separate self, is at the center of our universe. And but then we wake up, we realize no, we're just a part of this bigger organism, and the more we line ourselves in serving that greater whole, the more fulfilled we are. It's like the heart saying, oh, I'm the heart, I'm going to keep the best blood that's most oxygenated for myself. And that might be nice for the first 5 minutes, that the heart will be invigorated, but after a while, the lungs are going to start atrophying, and all the other systems, the brain won't work so well. So, and then the heart will start diminishing and can't survive because it needs the totality. So when we're focused on our egoic needs, we're kind of disconnecting ourselves from the broader wholeness that we're embedded, that we're a part of. And when we focus on the wellness of the whole, then we find our deepest fulfillment, and that's our service and our purpose, and where we use our gifts in service. So that's kind of the theme of this book about giving.
Perfect. So we've been talking with Dr. Yosi Amram, the author of the book Spiritually Intelligent Leadership. I will hold it up for those who are watching. And why don't you tell us where we can learn more? Where do you want to point people? Where can they get the book? Here's the chance to tell people how to connect with you.
Well, there's a website, yosiamram.net, and that's kind of my umbrella website. It points to my coaching website for those interested in coaching. It points to my psychotherapy website where I do also couples counseling. It points to a website that has free assessments for people interested in getting a profile of their spiritual intelligence qualities. It's called Intelligency. And so it has kind of, I'm involved with multiple projects, and it's kind of the umbrella. And in there's my contact information, including my email. And I welcome people reaching out. If any of this touches you, or you've read the book, you have questions, I'm happy to engage. And we're part of this humanity, this human community. And I love to be in connection with people that are passionate about leadership and making a positive impact in the world.
So now, everyone, before we finish, I have a question for you, everyone else. The question I ask you every single episode at the close, and it is simply this: now what? What will you take from this experience that you can go apply? Like, it's one thing to say, okay, I learned some stuff, or I literally took some notes, or I mentally took some notes while I was jogging or driving or whatever you're doing as you're listening to our conversation. But that won't really change anything for you. What will change something for you is if you take some action on what you learned. Maybe it's getting a copy of the book. Maybe it's one of the 7 dimensions, something that Yosi said leads you to do something, to try something, to ask someone a question, to do something. That's the question. What will you do as a result of our time? And if you think about and answer that question, then this will have been of great value to you. Yosi, thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure to have you. I appreciate our time and your passion as well as the research-based approach to this soft and squishy topic.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been a delightful joy and a privilege to be here with you.
So, everybody, that means we're at the close of today's episode. And so, if you're watching, you can see that you can go find all of our past episodes at remarkablepodcast.com. But if you're listening, you already are someplace where you're listening to this, which means keep listening. Subscribe, tell somebody else, give us a rating, or go back and dip in to something in the past. Go check out the show notes from this episode where I will point you to some other episodes that might be of great value or interest to you based on today, as well as to get access to the books and the resources that we've shared during the course of today's episode. And just like every week, we'll be back next week with another episode of the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. We'll see everybody then.